I'm figuring out how they got back in, and this gave me the appreciation for like what an APT actually is and can do. So after being evicted from the organization, they had targeted the secretary or the executive assistant for the CEO. They had compromised her home computer. And they had put a browser helper object inside of her browser, which when she went to use Yahoo Mail, it would basically make it look like the mail sent, but actually held it and then sent the request later on. And they waited 6 months until the CEO had asked the executive assistant while traveling, hey, I need this file, can you send it to me? This BHO captured that submission, grabbed that file, put a ODay on for PDF or Adobe PDF, and then fired that off to the CEO. So he asked for something, got it back from the person he was expecting it from, and had an ODay attached to it. And I started applauding. Like I looked at that and went, oh my God, like dude, this is amazing. And that's when I suddenly realized that the CIO had a clenched fist sitting behind me about to punch me in the back of the head. He was not as impressed as I was. So I mean, from my perspective, that was probably the worst incident. It gave me a good appreciation for what an APT can actually do when properly motivated. I say it's the worst from a global perspective because if you look at Operation Night Dragon and its consequences, natural resources, copper, gold, cobalt, everything worldwide spiked and didn't go back down for about 2 years. There were issues globally, prices on everything went up, and that was all because of cyber breaches at a handful of companies.
Wow.
I'll go. I think probably a lot of interesting technical ones, but I'll throw a slightly different slant out there. I think lots of bad days in my career, and I think probably the worst are when there's end users affected that you can't help. Some of you that work in financial services may know there are certain types of funds that are insured and there are others that aren't. Things like certain retirement funds and things like that. If an attacker or a threat actor is able to get in there and compromise your users, get at that money, move it out of accounts using any number of things. And in various past lives, I've seen it happen multiple times in multiple ways. And thematically, it's still the worst day, having to get on the phone with somebody and tell them that there's not really much recourse. And your retirement fund is gone. Our fraud team tried to claw it back. We got some back from the first hop maybe, and sometimes we got none back. And that best effort kind of work is unfortunate given, the kind of more advanced things that we all talk about, right? And, we can talk about the technical ins and outs of how do you protect against it. And was it a web app issue? Was it social engineering? Did they call a line and get a password reset from a tech desk or whatever? A million ways that those kinds of things occur. And the interesting thing in a lot of our seats is, for as much as we may work to secure all those technical ins and outs and work with the business owners and app owners and folks within our organizations to remediate issues that are found by pen testers or VDP researchers, whoever it might be, a lot of times we spend most of our time writing exceptions and doing risk work with those folks in areas that unfortunately they end up impacting actual people in the world. And honestly, for me, those are my worst days because those are the conversations that I want to have.
I'll go next. I actually have 4 because I couldn't think of just one really bad day. I work for the state, so every day is a bad day. It's jokes.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Thanks, Owen.
Where do you work?
Yeah.
You protect us.
He used to work for me, so that's why.
I figured.
So the first one, I was listening through the other stories here, I actually started writing down other ones because I really wanted to find sort of an overarching theme, and all of them talked about the impact to the globe, to the customers, to the community, and really all of these have that. The first one was I found out about it in the paper. This was a local government entity that was taken offline with ransomware, and I wake up and read it in AZ Central, and I'm like, why am I finding out about a local government being taken offline with ransomware in the paper? We should know this, and it should be reported to us before that. So we reached out to them and provided our assistance, and it's I won't give names, I won't name anyone out, which is fun watching all the government people squirm. Is he gonna talk about me? I'm not, don't worry. Or am I? So this one specifically, one guy focusing on the entire organization, providing IT support, no cybersecurity, no background in security whatsoever. We get them back online. He's like, half of my backups are recoverable. I've started to get stuff spun up again. And we asked the question, cool, did you figure out how they got it in the first place? What was the vulnerability? Have you fixed it? And he was like, what are you talking about? My systems are online. I don't need to worry about that anymore. Yeah. So we deploy our EDR solution everywhere. We start finding vulnerabilities. We start asking them to walk through patching them and get to the point where we're pretty sure the initial infection vector was an unpatched Exchange 2016 server. This was 2023, so not a good time. And we're like, please go patch your on-premise Exchange server. It needs to happen immediately. And he's like, well, I hit Windows Update. It's patched. It says it's fine. It was like, no, the operating system's good. Exchange needs to be patched. Please go do that now. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never done that before. So good times. Make sure you understand what your environment looks like and how to patch your stuff, and understand what cybersecurity looks like. And another reminder that cyber and IT are not the same things.
By the way, my favorite part of that story you left out, which was it's somebody that I also work with, and I happened to be at the gym, and you just sent me a message, WTF, and sent me some links. So
yes,
you helped spike my heart rate for that cardio session, so thank you.
Glad to help. This one, again, was another big impact, which, again, the sort of through line here is this prevented a large group of people from getting paid for multiple weeks, if not months. And this is entire communities impacted. And these are people that they don't get paid a lot anyway. They work for government. So that's massively impactful to them, their communities, their families, which is a really, really bad day. The second one I want to talk about was, following up with Ian, is the incident response that you can't help with. We got a phone call from a nonprofit organization that we can't service. Government can't provide taxpayer-supported services to nonprofit or profit organizations. So they call me and they say, I'm having a bad day. All of my stuff is locked up with ransomware. I'm a very small nonprofit. I don't have an IT shop. I don't have a security team. I don't know what to do. And this is an organization that basically puts kids with cancer in touch with people that will read books to them. How big of a piece of shit do you have to be to take an organization like that offline?
Yep.
So this one really tugged at my heartstrings, and we really got the community together and said, like, who can help? How do we get people to come in, help this organization? Because they were literally like out of business. They didn't have backups. They were all gone. They didn't have systems. They were all gone.
We're at CactusCon.
Yeah, true. Yeah, we were at CactusCon. Actually, I'm picturing in my head, we were standing over in the Snow Talks hallway, and I'm like walking back and forth trying to put them in touch with FBI, with CISA, with anyone that will help. And fortunately, we got them back up online. Not we personally, but we managed to get enough of the community together to help them get back online. But it's that kind of stuff where you just have that, like, man, who would do this kind of stuff? And I have no way to help you other than let's get everyone together and make it go. The third and final one, this, again, I talk a lot about the human impact of cybersecurity because obviously we provide services to humans, and this is really big in what we do. The third one was my team rolled out to conduct an incident response to one of our local government partners, and they all got COVID. So that was fun. Entire SOC team, entire IR team offline with COVID. So yeah, good job. I have no idea how that happened because you were in a car ride for X number of hours. I'm not going to give away where it was, with the entire team who was just like dying in the back seat and somehow managed to avoid it. So good job, Allie. Cool. Oh, geez, so many questions.
Yes.
In the front, go ahead.
Yeah. Common thing from what I'm hearing is you may have strong security, but your weakest link is your external response.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
How do y'all deal with it?
I prefer not to say weakest link. I prefer to say our most vulnerable, right?
Yeah,
like
that's the same.
our connections and, frankly speaking, our people that are working in these organizations are the most vulnerable things that we're trying to help protect. How do we address it? It's hard. Yeah, it's hard. We're all interconnected. We've got so many supply chains that we're trying to protect, and it's impossible to protect them all.
I know you got one more, but we all talked about bad stories and that. When we come into conferences, we talk about the bad stuff and the big numbers. Are we and even society becoming numb to how big? It used to be if 100 got hit, 1,000, then 100,000, and 1 million. Well, 1 million credit cards got compromised, right? Are we becoming becoming so numb about this? That
Yeah. You can't see behind you. Everybody's nodding because it is.
You guys brought it down to the personal level, and those type of stories about how it impacts people.
Yes.
Real people, not somebody, 100,000, you don't know who they are. That's more impactful, I think, even for the businesses, business management, sales and everybody here.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
We talk about data breaches all the time. No. I agree. We talk about these data breaches all the time, millions, thousands, billions of records, whatever it is now. And in fact, Preston, where you at, man? He asked the question, like, do we even care, right? Like, we've had people come up to us and just say, like, my data's out there.
what?
Who cares if it gets stolen again, right? I've got this credit monitoring for the 12th time. And sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, as great as it is to cash that $6 check from Equifax, that felt good, but I mean, you get everybody, us included, all of us get numb to it after a while.
It really comes down to cyber warfare, what's going on and how we deal with countermeasures. It really does.
Well, and to Bob's point, it comes back to the impact, right? Because a data breach is one thing. That's like long tail of potential impact of people are going to steal your identity and they're going to sign up for credit cards or whatever. They're going to fake kill you off and collect the money for it. But the integrity of the data that we're protecting, right? If people are changing your healthcare records or your military service or congratulations, you're a criminal now, that has other impacts. So we're not just talking about the confidentiality of this data. We need to protect the integrity of it too. But then also looking at availability, right? Availability is king in the CIA triad. If you're taken offline for a certain amount of time, if we're talking about school districts, if we're talking about water and wastewater, if we're talking about an energy provider,
Health and safety.
healthcare, right? Hospitals. Yeah. All of these things provide a critical service that if they're offline for minutes, days, weeks, people die. Right? Like, that is the impact we need to be talking about. Not just like, I lost my social security number for the 500th time, but that hospital went offline or that school district went offline and that's the only place my kid gets to have lunch for the entire week. Mm-hmm. We need to start talking about that stuff more.
Yeah. But to your point, it is the death by 1,000 cuts, right? When have you opened up a newspaper and you haven't read about the most recent breach? We are getting desensitized to it, and people are wondering, well, so what?
Yeah. Well, so I'm just going to throw this out because I love this site. It's web3isgoinggreat.com, and it tracks crypto issues. And it's up to $76 billion in stolen crypto. And some of that is made up internet money that belongs to companies, but some of that is legit people who put their savings into it.
Well, you've heard that cybercrime, if it was a country, would be the third highest GDP in the world after US and China.
Yeah.
But why do they get into cybercrime?
Yeah.
Are we in the wrong world? Why do we want to be CISOs anyways?
I hear crime does pay.
I'll answer that question. We want to help people, right? Andy, get control of this thing.
Thank you, though.
So next question, we're gonna shift to the next one. I promise. I'm sure you'll find folks as we continue on.
Can I say one thing?
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I wanted to echo what Ryan just said because it's really important. The
Okay.
last thing you just said, Ryan. I work in the safe drinking water information space. So you all have been sharing IT bad stories. OT is huge.
Yep.
A lot of operators will put a device online with a default password and think their work is done.
Is that a problem? Should we not do that?
Yeah.
I can manage those wells from my house. I don't even have to drive around anymore. Come on.
But not all passwords supposed to be passwords?
Yes, that's true. Or 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right. So
That's what Iran told me anyway.
how do you incentivize your organization to shift the culture in a more secure way? And this could be practical. It could be something else. But like, are you using gift cards, challenge coins, lunch or pizza, raffle with expensive gifts? Like, so you can tack this to security awareness. But like, how do you actually start like shifting things around? Because like that's the biggest one that we're chasing. So like, just to make it somewhat personal, like. Hi, executive, I would love for you to take our security awareness training and stop forwarding your phishing, and more specifically, please forward your phishing. Please stop sending your spam to us. Like, we're not your spam junk mailbox. Like, we actually have security ops. Like, so anyways, how do you shift your culture?
I mean, every organization is different, and what works in one won't work in another. My current company, I use threats of violence because we joke around. Yeah.
We got to talk, man. There's carrot and stick. Like, maybe a little more carrot.
Some of your employees back there with a black eye, just like.
But historically, I have gone down the route in larger organizations, especially, of having like internal company store credits. And I actually really liked, like, hey, you get $5 towards the company store for a mug or a t-shirt. And I used to love walking around, because I was basically one of the very few people who actually did that. You'd walk past a cube and you'd see somebody that just has like their whole cube decked out in gear, and it's like, yeah, that's my champion. Nice.
Yeah, I think we want to recognize and incent good behavior. I heard something, and maybe Ryan can tell me if it's still true. What happens to people who click on phishing emails? Do they just get training, or do they get axed? Because I heard at one point DHS was like showing them the door. And I'm thinking most organizations can't afford to do that.
I would say there are some state agencies that are doing that, where if they click on phishing emails, they're essentially put out on admin leave until they take additional training. Okay. Some of them are just disabled, and then, of course, we've got varying degrees within that. I'm of the school that we should incentivize good behavior and not necessarily punish bad behavior, but we need to have the stick. Like, it should just sit in the desk behind us.
And you shouldn't have to use it, right? Yes. But we've all had those people that are clicking on it over and over and over again, and you clicked on it 30 times. Why do you hate our network that much? I will say that at a previous organization, TELUS, we introduced something because we had awards for people who were firefighters, came in and saved the day, but we introduced an award called the Smokey the Bear Award for proactively stopping behavior or problems before they occurred. And for that one, they did get the doll, they did get a frame that they could put on as a piece of flair on their cubicle, and they did get the points internally that they could, go and buy gift cards and things like that with. So I do think it's important to do that. It's a multi-pronged approach, but we just can't afford to have those people repeatedly clicking and showing the bad behavior. And look, there are repeat offenders out there, and it's like...
Again, government, I'm not allowed to use taxpayer funds for employee recognition, so that's fun.
That's right, I had that.
So what we used to do, and this kind of died off during COVID because it was hard to go around to people's houses and give them gifts and things, but we used to, anytime someone reported an actual phish to our office, we would go out, and me personally and whoever their agency director was, we would bring them Swedish fish or goldfish and, have them take a picture. We'd put them in like the, the monthly newsletter. And, thank you for saving the state and all of our relevant communities from a phishing email. So trying to give that positive recognition.
I think that's a really creative approach, because I was in that position in government as well, and you just gave me flashbacks, and that it's like, go out and stop all of this stuff, but you can't use any taxpayer money on recognition. It's like, what are we going to do to incent people? Yes. Right?
Tell them we'll beat them less.
I think for me, it's both approaches, right? There definitely has to be the censure side of things, and I think generally from a policy perspective, over the years we've gone through ebbs and flows of that kind of culturally in the field. I mean, like there was an era, I remember when it was censure was a core part of every policy you had. What happens if somebody doesn't do it, right?
Consequence for non-compliance.
Exactly, and we've kind of gotten away from that a bit, but I think there still has to be those checks and balances for when people do outright fail at things as well. And I think the communities that those occur in are different too. So for instance, if somebody fails a phishing test, that's one path to training. But if I have a developer that continues to make bad commits to the pipeline, they get a whole different set of things, right? Yeah. And then similarly, the reward side, because, thankfully we don't have, some of the restrictions in the commercial space as others do. We do challenge coins, we do shirts, we do hackathons, and we do, it feels like every month is Cybersecurity Awareness Month almost. We bring in speakers and, we invite people to lunch and learns and things like that. I mean, so we do put a lot of effort behind the recognition side. We do the company store. We have Lumen points. We give Lumen points to people who report good phishing and do a good job on things like that, where they bring something maybe to the security team. So we try to hit it from every angle we can. Does it have a tangible impact in terms of the output of folks? I think it does. I think both sides of that coin can help, right? Developers don't want to do more training. I can tell you that right now. So not having to do that is an incentive for them, right? To go back through and try to do their best. And then the same with people on the phishing side, not doing bad things because they don't want to get that nasty gram in the training. That helps. What helps even more, I think, is when you can when you do have those opportunities to say, hey, you did a good job, here's some Swedish fish, so to speak.
I do want to add one more thing that's really important here is be careful, beware creating a culture of shame where somebody just clicked on something and then is hesitant to report it, because what that looks like is they just clicked on it, or they might have clicked on it, they're not sure, that means they clicked on it, by the way. Then they go off on a break on lunch. That's called giving the attacker an unnecessary advantage. And then they start thinking about it and they come back and then they're like, I probably should tell somebody, but then I'm going to get in trouble. Watch out for that. That's the single most dangerous thing that you can do. So if you were going to put some kind of censure or repercussions, personally, I would put it around not reporting the thing.
So this is a cultural problem, not just within your companies. It's a public problem.
Yeah.
As in, our general population is not educated. What do y'all think we should do?
Do any of you do bug bounty programs on the government side?
I will say at the BC government that I didn't, because I saw that as giving them open license to check for vulnerabilities. And if you can't get into that environment within 3 to 4 hours, you're a shitty pen tester. You should consider a new career.
This is a target-rich environment.
That is exactly what I used to say. If I was in private, I would have monetized it and sold the threat intel to vendors.
That's brutal. Andy, can I kick this back to the audience? What would you guys want to see to be incentivized to do better?
Taking notes now.
From a public perspective or within a company?
Within a company or from a public citizen perspective? Is it pizza parties and challenge coins? Free day off.
That's what you get if you click on the
Nan
phishing.
says, "Pay me more money, you cheapskate." Sorry, Nan.
Like a healthy competition between BUs, like instead of reporting, phishing click rate for the whole org, reported by BU, so there is a healthy competition.
But were you talking about companies or the general public? That's what I'm hearing.
Both.
Right to and including seniors.
Yeah.
We can attack the symptom all freaking day, but if we're not solving the root cause of education and understanding,
Yep.
we're never going to solve this problem.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So we're trying to go back and talk to K through 12s. We're talking to students and teachers. We're trying to get out into the members of the public to actually make them more aware. Something I talk a lot about is, you guys are familiar with BEAD, the Broadband Everywhere program, trying to put high-speed internet in every house. This is a terrifying prospect for me, because now we are putting another 1 million people online, another 1 million devices online that have never had the internet before and don't know what to do with it. So we're trying to get out as those things are rolling out. How do we get out and talk to the citizens, talk to the public, go to public locations where they have internet now and start meeting with them and teaching and training them to be better stewards of the internet.
You were talking about how someone got it at home and took it back into work.
Yeah.
That's the same thing, but they
sure.
need to understand it.
Make it personal.
Make it very, very personal.
Yep.
So I think the general thing, and I'm just going to restate this because it's on the recording, just so everybody has a piece and it makes sense of context of, like, these guys are just all over the place talking about things that I don't understand, which is welcome to CISO. So, that might not be too new. The question was really around the general public. If we have, the general public is working in organizations on a day-to-day level. They could be, small children that are first coming onto the internet, or they could be retirees that are just looking to play their Facebook games, because they're flashier than solitaire. And so ultimately, how do we educate that public approach? And so as part of that, go ahead, I'll repeat.
I was at CVS this morning buying a gift card, and it literally popped up a message that said, "Don't ever buy one first scam." Like, watch.
That's awesome.
So I thought that was I would love that, because I was like, wait, you're right in their face, questioning them before they can even hit next to buy that thing.
So restating for the mic, CVS, calling out the great behavior that we're seeing, has a thing that when you're buying a gift card, they're going to push out and say, hey, if you're buying this to pay for some bill or anything else like that, don't do that thing. Look for phishing attacks. And so we're seeing that on a day-to-day basis on pop-up kiosks and other vendors. And I think that's great in the retail space for that business-to-consumer education support.
And I do think there's some onus on companies that have that consumer outreach too. So, for instance, for us in our broadband, user access space, there is a lot of work that's done from an outreach perspective so that our customers understand how to be secure too, and that only helps us as well. I mean, as much as I'd like to say we're trying to make the world a better place, our customers being more secure is better for us from in every aspect, right?
It can be both, right?
It can, it does, and that I think the more companies that have those tendrils into the home, whether it's broadband or whether it's Microsoft and others, right? I mean, I think there's some responsibility there, but like you said, I mean, it does go both ways. I think the more folks understand that it helps them to have secure customers as well, the more opportunity they can have to fund and to put effort behind that kind of stuff. But it does need to be there, and it also needs to be there from an education perspective with youth and programs and things like this, like Cactus Con Kids, is that what it's called?
It is.
Yeah.
It's a great
Cactus
idea.
Con Kids. Shout out.
But yeah, so how are we to reach if you had a message that you wanted to get across to everybody, how to use things like roundabouts or how to drive properly, how do you get that out to everybody? There really is no way, because who watches TV, radio, newspaper anymore? At our best, it would be social media. And I'll tell you, there's a bigger problem here. What do you think that most people believe we do for a living, or the worst thing that can happen to them is that their computer gets infected? But going to your point with the critical infrastructure and water, no, I'm not the chief virus hunter. I've handed that off to the help desk in IT long ago. I'm worried about threats to the democratic process and things like that, and people getting dead, because in the future here you're going to see a lot more cyber terrorism.
That's my concern. We need some beekeepers.
And it's that death by 1,000 cuts, and what can we do to educate people now so that they're not becoming a chronic victim? And whose job is that? Is it somewhere in federal or state government, or is it all of us?
His job?
I think it's Ryan's job. All in favor, it's Ryan's job. He's got Swedish fish.
Who wants to pay more taxes?
And nobody.
Yeah.
See, nobody.
Gotcha. Thank you, Sandeep. I appreciate it.
I was just saying, you're right. We can use your therapist services, because a lot of these things they're playing on emotions, right? I mean, like, I want to, trip to Hawaii. Like, my wife gets emails all the time about winning this and that, and so it's like, no matter what, like, we have, don't drive drunk, don't, smoking kills, and all of those campaigns and things are going on, right? So it's more of a human interaction, human emotion kinds of things, right? Like I'm reading now about like human risk management, right? That's the next thing. Maybe there needs to be at a higher level. And how do you deal with that emotional part of it, which is innate in us humans?
Yeah. And
I'm just going to restate, just to catch the mic up and everything else. I mean, the reality is we're talking about human. I'm going to rephrase, so catch me if I'm wrong. We're really talking about human psychology, right?
Yes.
And the way that attackers are going after people is they're hitting us at an emotional level, going through all these things. And so for as much as we have social campaigns like don't drive drunk, and please put on your seatbelt, and don't leave your loved ones in cars, regardless of what that means for you, like especially here in Arizona, that's a huge one, but all those social campaigns are big. And so, really, what does that look like for us within cyber, in terms of how we apply some of those things? So is that okay as a summary? Okay.
Yes, we're trying to change human behavior, and that's hard, right? Like every sector that's ever tried to do this before finds that that's difficult. Who here would rather eat chocolate or a salad? Yeah, that chocolate's not necessarily good for you. The salad's probably better for you, but chocolate tastes good, and it makes me feel good. So it's really, really hard to change human behavior, especially when you get the emotional component into it.
And there's a convenience factor too. I mean, and some of you in the room may be aware, there are a number of companies out there that, as smartphones were really first, the first 5 to 8 years, call it, a number of companies came out with cases and various things to lock down all RF and make it so you can't, your phone can't be, the microphone can't be, turned on and listened to. It phase shifts there's all kinds of really cool technology out there. At the end of the day, everybody wants to play Angry Birds more than they want to be secure.
That's right.
And that's the human behavior we're trying to change also, is that convenience factor of the fact that a lot of us, even as security professionals, will talk about, well, I don't put, an XYZ device in my house because it's listening. And we all have these in our pockets all day.
Exactly.
So we just need to understand that it's very much a chocolate versus salad situation in most of these situations.
You heard it here at CISO Village.
That's right,
Chocolate versus salad.
There's chocolate in the back if anyone wants it, or cake for dessert.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. I'll ask for some brevity in terms of walking through this.
Good luck.
But I think there's a good maybe wrap-up question that we're having because we're kind of talking through a bunch of this. So I think it logically makes sense. What's the biggest threat that you're tracking that could have an impact to your organization? So, for example, like things of qualified staff, changes in U.S. or other geopolitical landscape, evolving malware attacks, vendor management, new regulations, phishing. Like what's the one for you? Like, what's that one that is on your radar? They're all there.
We know what the answer here is, and you've heard it throughout the talks today. Right, and people often refer to them as the weakest link, but I will reject that notion of humans being this weakest link. I think that if they're educated and aware that they're your greatest asset, they are your early warning beacon system, and we can't give up on, as much as it is very difficult to try to get Bob to stop clicking on those F-bombs, no or yes?
It's a hacker
Those
conference.
freaking
F-bombs are
emails,
allowed, yes.
it's like, we've all seen Bob, to change his behavior. You just can't get through to him, but I don't think that we can give up. So I do think, though, that it requires different mindset than just the typical IT and security folks. We all know that security professionals come from all walks of life, and we need people from different backgrounds and different professions like counselors and psychologists to help us fix this problem. Otherwise, it's shock collars and cattle prods that I'm going to.
Yeah,
but humans will continue to be the greatest, and AI isn't going to do shit about that.
So I appreciate not putting our editor through some pain of having to bleep out things. So no F-bombs. Appreciate that.
So no F-bombs?
Would rather not.
Okay.
It gets expensive after a while. I think they're on a per bleep cost.
That checks out.
Wait, he's charging you per bleep?
Nope.
We're going to DDoS Andy's wallet. Sorry.
It's a human problem.
Well, so what I was going to bring up was the human problem, but the technology was AI. And I'd like to give a specific example. I was just telling folks about this outside. Had somebody who got an email. It said, hey, we've changed our wiring information. We're going through an audit. Here's our new wiring information. And their COO did the right thing and called the person. Called their line, not the one that was in the email.
Nice.
Talked to the person. They validated, no, we are actually going through something. If you could just go ahead and send it to the new information. And then a few days later, when they were wondering why they didn't get paid, realized that not only their email was compromised, but their RingCentral was compromised.
Oh,
and it
ouch.
was redirected to what we think was like an AI attendant that was modeled after that person's voice.
Oh, that's amazing.
So that was fun.
Yeah. Over-reliance on some of the tools and AI is going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, you're still exploiting the human, but now we've made it just so much better.
Better or worse?
Yeah, I was going with words on that.
Yeah.
You mean me?
I would say everything yes to what's already been said, both the human piece as well as AI, and I know it's also add to that the geopolitical, obviously, for those of us that are, operating globally or any, state, local, federal government, anything like that. Obviously, geopolitical landscape is, a huge factor to, how we look at things from a threat standpoint. And going forward, when you layer on what you guys just talked about with that, it becomes harder and harder for us to understand who our bad guys are, right? And where, from a defense perspective, we need to be focused because, and I guarantee everybody in the room's in the same position, we still all are dealing with legacy technology that needs to be upgraded, right? We're talking about AI and we're talking about all these really advanced threat vectors, but also there's still just no MFA on some stuff.
There's still Windows XP out there.
Right.
Could we
There's
put an
XP.
end to that this year, please?
Yes, so we're simultaneously, we're kind of all, what I would say is what I view as the biggest threat is the duality of the role right now for all of us, where we're simultaneously trying to design, mitigations for like interstellar travel. and still have teams chiseling wheels, like to try to get MFA on this web portal over here. So
quotables.
that's a tough position to be in when all of what's happening now happens, right? So we all got to move faster. There's things we got to get out. I got.
You got the last word, man.
Am I getting the wrap it up? Is that what's happening here? Is there something geopolitically happening? Is there stuff happening in the world? So I'm certainly not going to make political commentary. I will echo, yes, I know, I'm sorry. Turns out some of us have to work in politics. So I will also echo that people, yes, are the cause of and solution to all of the world's problems. We need to find a way to do better here. And you mentioned legacy technology. If Mark taught us anything today, that legacy tech is a problem of legacy thinking and all of our executive debt. It's not just technical problems. So all of these stem back to a people problem and incentivizing good behavior and incentivizing forward thinking and incentivizing ways for us to do better, because we continue to suck at the same things that we've always sucked at. And I don't know how we do better than that to try to change this culture that we have, to try to change these problems that we're continuing to fight. And a lot of it comes back to, Andy, you mentioned one of the things on the list was qualified staff. We don't have enough people to do this work because we're continuing to try to solve it in the same legacy ways that we've tried to solve these legacy problems for the last 30 years. And obviously it's not working, but for some reason we keep trying to do it the same way. You guys are here. So fortunately, you're smart enough, you're bright enough, you're forward thinking enough to try to figure out how do we solve some of these problems. Fortunately, I'm going to move on and go live in the woods or whatever for the next time, and you guys can deal with it. But again, people continue to be the challenge, but they are also the solution, and I think we need to all work together to figure it out.
That's good.
Round of applause. We did that already. But thank you so much to our great panelists for walking things through. You guys are welcome to stay here or chillax. I mean, we're basically at wrap up. Where's the slide thingy? Everything's a thingy. There's a thingy. I like thingy. That's an old slide. Nice. We're just gonna go back to the last one and just pretend that was the wrap up slide. What did you guys think? So this is the time to really talk.
Good job, Andy.
I appreciate you guys. Honestly, I wouldn't do this if I didn't have great people. So again, calling out to all the friends, all the people that have supported it and everything else. Thank you to our AV folks and team and everything else, because now we get a chance to actually go back through and listen to some of this stuff. And that was the feedback that we had last year. Is, hey, last year, for those that remember or don't, and this is your first time, we had 6 workshops all going at the same time. So when we're talking about kind of noise problems and what do we want to fix for next year, it was not better last year. We've actually gotten better this time. And so ultimately, one of the challenges that we had is we didn't have a chance to go back and listen to everything because we were speeding things through. And so thank you to Fern for really stepping up. And giving us a chance to kind of go back through this and to chew on it and everything else like that. So I know let's take the easy one. Man, it got loud. So congrats for Preston for interrupting Cactus Kids. Appreciate that. But ultimately, what are some of the things? Let's start with what we liked. What was your favorite thing today? Just shout out and I'll try and repeat.
Yes.
Mark did great. Mark's fantastic. Everybody's fantastic. But yeah, good call out for Mark. Hit me. You had a thing that went that way.
90-day.
The 90-day thing? Loved it? Yeah, I think Dina and Lester, has crushed it. I love that one myself.
Any new CISOs, brand new in the role, going to take some of that feedback and go learn how to be a CISO better? Nice.
Me? I'll take it.
Any old CISOs going to go take some of those things back? Yeah.
And yeah, I think there was in all of those work sessions. I think it was something that I was able to take and said, oh, okay, I can do that. Or, oh, I should think a little bit more
Yeah.
about every one of these things. I think every one of them was.
Yeah, every workshop was meaningful, and there were takeaways. I think the one big thing that we've tried to do, and again, like, let us know, raise a hand, like, really making it practical. Like, that's always been a big thing for me personally, is like, what's that take home? What do I do tomorrow? Like, I love strategy, but like, what's tomorrow? And I'm kind of simple and smooth-minded that way. Hit me.
Yeah, so I would like to say, just the community here, connecting at this space here, I think that's a really valuable thing here for Valley.
Yeah, I think it's huge.
We had folks from outside of the Valley.
Yeah, we had people traveling in Utah, I heard, Ohio. What somebody was traveling in from that? Like, that was crazy. I think it was Bath and Body Works. I can't remember his name, but he traveled in with Ashley and just literally got off a plane, came here, and was like, this was great. But yeah, we're getting people to travel in for this is fantastic. And so again, shouting out to the community for all the great things. And so again, this is a whole room of friends. And so truly believe that. Thank you for being part of it. Other great things? Go ahead.
I was going to say, I like the diversity and like the interactive workshops. Vendor reveal was kind of enlightening for me, like where there was alignment or misalignment with incentives and things like that. So I thought that was
Vendor reveal is really great in terms of like where you only saw one side of your table, but you know there's another guy on the other table. Nice. Christian?
Yeah, I was going to say all the workshop leaders had great thoughts and ideas to contribute. One of the things they did well, and what I liked about this style is, I got to learn at every session. I was just learning from everybody else sitting at the tables. I know that's one of the things you emphasize when you guys plan these things. So I really got a lot out of that. Contrary to just sitting in a room, someone's telling you their thoughts and ideas during a presentation. Every session, I was like looking at someone, I'm like, oh, they're really knowledgeable about this, and I got takeaways from just people I was sitting around.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, repeating like that ability to say like not only were the workshops really helpful and engaging and interesting topics, but the people sitting next to us and everybody kind of leaning in, like it wasn't just learning from the guy sitting in front of you talking, but it was also learning from your peers actively, to kind of solve that problem together.
It's felt like big planning with everybody, not having a bunch of vendors talking to us. It makes a lot more sense. A lot more depth.
Yeah, so while there are vendors in here, so I appreciate all the people that have to wear a vendor hat and everything else like that. Again, we had one, kind of self-professed in the vendor reveal party, so he disclosed himself, so everybody can throw fruit at him and the other way around. But the whole idea that we had a very neutral kind of space, and it almost felt like a little think tanky in terms of helping to solve some of these problems together. Hopefully yeah. Repeated. Anything else? Other topics? What do you want to see next year? More coffee?
Yes.
I'll clap for that.
Red Bull and caffeine? Nam?
I already told you this, but like, how do we talk to the CFO? Manages the budget. Like, how do we talk to the other C-suites to do it now?
Yeah. So, and this is one that is, again, Ashley knocked it out of the park. I loved everything that she brought to the table in terms of Discount Tire. It was an engaging conversation. It was simple. It focused us on where we are, which I think is fantastic. And I think we even talked about it on the panel. Like, man, where we are is we're still dealing with XP issues. And so really talking about, visibility on everything else like that is a real thing. And so Ashley crushed it. But one of the things that I've been thinking about for next year is like, man, wouldn't it be great if we could talk to like a CFO? Right? Like, and maybe we put a CFO at the keynote or at a panel, because we're literally trying to harass them all day long anyways to get our budget. And he's turning around telling us like to go pound sand. It's not like that cybersecurity is the first person that's trying to shake him down. And so from that, like, how do we actually have more meaningful conversations, with our executive team, with the people that are controlling budgets and everything else? Like, that would be a really interesting conversation in terms of like engaging executives, because again, for many of us, like, we need to align to the business and the things that we need. And so how do we better communicate that narrative as we're presenting that? And so again, Nan, totally talking through, I think a CFO would be great. But ultimately, I think, trying to get, more of an understanding of how we support the business holistically, not just within kind of IT. So how do we up-level our communication styles a little bit to where we're business-centric, which there was a couple other people talking about, I think maybe a workshop even on how do you present to the board? How do you present to stakeholders or stockholders in terms of the investments that they're making in that company if they are public or something else like that? And I think those are interesting things that we don't often get a chance to talk. And again, I facetiously give the joke of like, man, I'm just happy when people even invite the security guy into the room, and I'm like, I'm just happy to be there at that point in time. So I think there's a whole conversation there that could be interesting as well. Topics, hit me.
Breakout rooms or workshops would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
I have a lot of value out of workshops hearing about every fifth word. If I heard almost all the words, it'd be better.
Yeah. So the workshops were great. Every fifth word, and I think that's kind of the piece. And like that was probably the biggest one. And again, like we had a bigger room, and I liked having the more auditorium seating style, but like we had room to stretch out those tables to maybe give us more room. And I think next year we're gonna grow. Like that's gonna be a thing. So like, how do we do that logistically? Like I was thinking about trying to say like, well, everybody last year we had all of the people moving around to different seats because again, moving around and it helps, but moving 100 people?
It was better moving the speakers around.
Yeah. Moving the speakers around was better. So then what do we do next year? Like maybe we'll need another room and then it's classroom styles or, yeah. And so then we got, CISOs running between the halls trying to make it to the next facilitating thing. Like it could be fun. There was a hand over here.
I was just going to say head outside or something.
Yeah, maybe we have a CISO on the lawn like type of thing, like, could be good. Sander?
If you add more coffee, it's going to have those breaks, and go to the next table.
Yeah, put coffee in between each piece. So it's kind of like you do that whole thing with like running and you gotta drink before you do the next lap. Yeah.
Caffeination station.
Yeah, caffeination. Go ahead, please.
Maybe a topic area is how to manage your team to make sure they're not overworking themselves.
Ooh, so we talk about people a lot, right? Like, and that was also a common theme on the panel, right? So then, how do we handle overwork? How do we handle work-life balance? Like, and because I'll talk for me specifically. I'm kind of an idiot, and I'll just work all the time. Like, and I don't take breaks and everything else like that. And so, how do you help keep your team in for the marathon? And it could also be the IT team in for the marathon, and not just the sprint of whatever our current day is. I think that's a great call. Way in the back.
Assuming that there's a lot of people in here that are wanting to become a CISO, maybe talking about going through the CISO interview process, insights as a CISO, what executives are looking for.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting one. So the question or statement, suggestion was like, hey man, I'm not always, like sometimes I look for a job and sometimes I take that job. But during the interview process, like what does that look like and how do I better prepare for that? Because obviously we're all trying to kind of level up, and so how do we get ready for that next set of questions, in terms of, making sure that we're there. And so I think it's great. Yeah, absolutely. Sander again?
I got 2 points.
Please.
Maybe one on liability, becoming more and more of a topic. Next year.
So let's define liability a little bit more. So first one was liability.
Personal liability as a CISO.
Okay.
What are
Yep.
the best practices there? What does it cost? What kind of route do you need to take there with the organization?
Okay.
Those kind of things. And the other one is maybe since we've got such a diverse group here, is like find a mentor kind of session.
Yeah. So that one came up a little bit with Andrew Wilson as well. So the first one was about personal liability as a CISO. We're starting to see that as a trend, and that actually came up in Dara's workshop. The second one was really about mentorship, and I think it's been really challenging for many of us in the industry to kind of say like, hey, who do I mentor with? Because and the analogy I kind of had in talking with it is like, I think we're all really good about giving, if we were bowling, to put up the bumper rails to help people when they're bowling to kind of strike more often. But the challenge is like, what does mentoring actually look like? Because many of us, especially at the executive level, don't get a chance to interact with each other, in those spaces. And so what does what is an effective way for us to look at mentoring? And we can say mentoring to like a junior CISO or aspiring CISO, or with somebody who's senior. And we can also say like, hey, how do you build out your successor in terms, because we'll go back to the first point, it's not like you're going to stay here forever. I mean, romantically, I'm sure organizations would love that idea, but the reality is we're moving. So how do you prep for that succession plan? And I think there's a whole piece around mentorship that could be interesting. Last one. Anybody? Hit me, Dara.
Today we did the first 100 days of CISO. What about, how bringing in new employees, so your first 100 days of bringing in employees?
Ooh, that's an interesting idea. So we had 100 days of your CISO, but how do you have 100 days of all the people that you bring in to, staff and build that program, and what does that onboarding program look like for all the people joining your team? I think it's nice. So thank you again for being here. This is our event. We are basically wrapped up. As a reminder, this is fantastic, but we should do this more often. So here's the next kind of shout out. There was a piece to say this is not the only great networking event. So who's got a thing, and I'll shout it out into the mic. Where's the next event? Alex.
Hey, I didn't mention this, but I'm actually an organizer for B-Side San Francisco. Happened
Nice.
right before RSA. So if you, unfortunately, have to go to RSA, the conference right before it doesn't. It's better. It's better.
B-Side San Francisco. Hit it up right before RSA. What else are we going to next? Lester?
So I'm doing this for a buddy. For those of you who don't know, Eddie Clark, he runs the East Valley Security Meetup. No vendor talk, and you get to go to the Career Research Institute.
So meet up at a beer place for East Valley.
Sabbath.
It's the first Thursday of each month.
First Thursday of each month. It's the East Valley Cybersecurity Meetup. I think I summarized it. It's great, yeah, and Eddie's fantastic. Yeah. Hang on, I got to hit Dara first.
I have three. So the Women in Cybersecurity for Arizona, WISIS. We have a great organization. We do in-person and virtual events. Infrared Arizona is a nonprofit organization sponsored by the FBI. Again, totally free of charge to join. We do monthly cyber threat briefings. You get to hear from Ryan and his team. You get to hear from the FBI. You get to hear from Active. You get to hear from the HHS. You get to hear from CISA. So great resource there. And I'm personally hosting a International Women's Day brunch on March 7th to expand your network outside of cyber to other facets to build that networking and grow.
I got a smooth brain, so I'm going to try and repeat all that. So the first one was Women in Cybersecurity. Huge, fantastic. Second one was InfoGuard. Third one is there's one on March 7th, but I forgot the name already.
International Women's Day.
International Women's Day. Next one, there was some there.
We got Cloud Security Alliance on the 24th.
Cloud Security Alliance on the 24th. Han? Sky Song. Han, you had one?
Yes. So I'm the principal of a consulting firm, but this is not a plug on my consulting firm. But all the topics that were discussed today are close to heart. And I actually curate a peer session where I don't allow sales or vendors to come along. And it's really about stakeholders to talk about common initiatives that they are undertaking or they. And if you look at kind of the common program initiatives that are being addressed, there's a lot of commonality. So last person talked is but when you have stakeholders that actually structure these things, evaluation criteria, understanding the applicability and effective discussion of like this, it really helps out a lot of the other opportunity. The only thing I ask is please let that work so as much as it's being shared, the fact is it's an important thing. That's one thing. This reassurance community coming together, especially on a Saturday, that's awesome. I come into the Bay Area and I don't think that for a bit to a Saturday, get together, so it's pretty amazing. So you definitely want to help out the community. There's a couple of topics that are coming out. attended cyber conference out of Stanford. And these kids were like 19, 20. Just took first place. They came out of engineering class late. All three of them were backpacks taking first place. There's a 22-year-old that's just started with Anthropic that finished her computer science degree, graduate school, graduate degree at Stanford. So if we don't take advantage
So there was a lot there. Again, I got a smooth brain. So it sounds like, you know, a good way for us to like connect on that evolving community that you're trying to kind of instill is maybe best way is to kind of reach out to you. Do you want people reaching out on?
Yeah, maybe ask me. I'll take care of that.
Okay, so and Daniel, are you okay kind of throwing out last name? Okay, so, you know, if you are curious about connecting with board level conversations, vendors, new things, Han has got a great thing going. And so if you're curious about trying to get plugged into that network, hit up Daniel Schuer.
I'll just shout out to that. They are great. They get to the point. They are a valuable resource. So yes, anybody that wants to come and attend that, all right.
Perfect. Thank you, Daniel. Any others?
ISACA.org.
ISACA.org. Okay, when? Next week?
We have one next week and
Okay.
March 8th.
One here somewhere?
Right here.
Yep.
OWASP chapter here in Mesa, downtown Mesa, every third Tuesday.
Every third Tuesday, downtown Mesa for OWASP.
Just check them out on meetup.com.
Meetup.com, okay. And then Fern, you want you or you're just pointing at the ceiling?
I was here all day.
Yeah. So let me first hit all of this, and like Fern doesn't even have to say anything. Like if you haven't had a chance to really connect with Fern and do a podcast or just sit down and chat with him, please connect with Fern. Fern is basically out of, you know, kind of kindness and everything else, been a really servant for us at the AV space, but he's got a great podcast in the thick of it on YouTube. So please check that out if you want to chat with a lot of CISOs there. I think many of us have kind of been on that panel already, and I think it's been fantastic. So if you have not had a chance to connect with Fern, you need to meet Fern, number one, and number two, try to carve out some time and connect with Fern. He does a great thing. Other ones? Did I miss anything you want to highlight, Fern? I want to make sure you get time.
No, that was it. I was
Perfect.
just saying, at least one presenter from each session has connected.
Yeah.
I think my favorite part today was hearing how or other stories where people learn about their peers without having to catch them one-on-one. So
Yeah.
my favorite part is you can learn from people learn, or you can just learn about what they're like outside of work. Have that relationship with them.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of really cool ways to where we're just getting connected with each other and learning our stories through that podcast, and then it's really kind of helps to build that affinity of like, oh, I love this guy, like the story and how he presented that and everything else like that, and being able to kind of connect and then meet people here in person at events has been fantastic. So great one. Alex.
Another quick point, if you do find yourself, as well as being with B-Sides, ISSA Silicon Valley, IFJN, ISC Squared Silicon Valley, I'm on the board of both of those ones. We love to have people that are coming in through town to come to our meetings. They're usually the second Tuesday and I think the third Thursday of every. So if you find yourself there, it's a very open community. We usually have 50 to 100 people per meeting. So it's a really good spot to just find yourself in Silicon Valley. Show up, it's a really good community.
Bay Area, second Tuesday, ISACA, ISC Squared, San Francisco.
ISSA and ISC Squared.
ISSA and ISC Squared.
Just a suggestion.
Please.
This is my second year doing this,
Yeah.
but I would love if we had a way to have alumni come back for the keynote session. Maybe not do the workshops, but the panel, right? Just still come and hear the talks and still maybe float the room or something.
That's the goal, right? Like to continue this evolving, and so like talking with Ashley, she's like, I'm definitely going to be here and everything else like that. And so yeah, I would love that as well. And I think the more that we can kind of
Well, because we limit the passes, right? So how can we open it up for us to come back and do the things? But now
oh, you want a black badge? Oof.
Well, I mean, just to like come and participate
not
Yeah.
take a seat that allows someone to still do workshops.
Fair point. I think that's an interesting one. I'll have to talk to Christine about really how do we do that logistically and everything else like that. You're not wrong, and I love it because again, like this is all part of that community.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's huge. Like how do we keep we don't want this to be a one and done for anybody contributing. We want this to be kind of a thing. And so one of the other things that we subtly tried to do, and I don't know if it was there, but a lot of the people that were building workshops last year were helping someone new build workshops this year. And then we're hoping to kind of continue that on. And so kind of somewhat putting Dina on the spot, like it would be great as an example to have Dina, carry somebody else, through the process to really explain some of that. And so, yeah, get that pay it forward thing. And I think the other one that we can just try is we can just try kidnapping and put that over people's heads and just drag them in here. Like, so if they're returning, maybe I'm just kidding.
Or no, the secret, like the secret code, right? The easy to get into the.
Yeah. Throw an elbow, drop Andy's name, social engineer Andy. Not saying it hasn't happened. I appreciate you guys. I wouldn't do this if I didn't have you. This has been a fantastic thing for us, helping and contributing, and the panelists, our speakers. Again, thank you so much for being here. My hope is you get a chance to connect to the rest of the con and see the ending keynote kind of wrap up there. But otherwise, please make sure to capture cards, capture phone numbers, get all the other things, and have a fantastic rest of your weekend. And we'll chat soon.
How about a hand for Andy?